Alright guys, Happy New Year's, and this is my 700th video, which, I don't know, that's cool to me just in terms of just like that number alone, but alright, so returning to a topic that I did before, um, in the grooming for the birth rate, back to, but there is progress here because states are outlawing this slowly, but it's approaching the 30s, but it's still in the 40 range. There's still states that are allowing child marriage, um, as I already went through before, but this is just like a literal update. I had to touch upon this again, guys. I'm sorry. This is just outstandingly disturbing, right? Alright. So, child marriage in the United States. Learn more. Okay, there are too many exceptions for child marriage laws in the United States. Child marriage is harmful. It is a human rights violation. Yada yada. Okay. While being denied education and economic opportunity, equality now in our. Oh shit. Okay. We advocate for marriage to be set at 18, no exceptions. But you know that only 9 U.S. states meet this standard. Equality Now works around the world to end child early and forced marriage, applying our legal yada yada. Okay, good. So, what is child marriage? And obviously, we know what it is, but child marriage occurs when one or both of the parties to the marriage are below the age of 18. Child marriage is currently legal in 41 states. Okay, so I had a little too much hope. I thought it was just 40 states, but it's still progressively lowering just from the last time I actually covered this. Okay. Only Connecticut, Delaware, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and Vermont have set the minimum age at 18 and eliminated all exceptions. And 20 U.S. states do not require any minimum age for marriage with a parental or judicial waiver. Nearly 300,000 children were married in the U.S. between 2000 and 2018. The vast majority were girls wed to adult men, many much older. Okay, so when we talk about the groomer narrative, it's like, oh my god, it's like pedophiles wanting little boys. But in this case, it's the socially acceptable fertility cult model, as long as there's children through the bottleneck of this disturbing age range with each other. Like, they don't care as long as it is functionally not out of wedlock and produces a child that you can optically make it seem like she wants it and that it'll come off like there's consent. You can manipulate her into just thinking that this is just okay and yada yada. Oh, back in my day, I had kids when I was 15. Yeah, okay, Grandma. I'm sorry, but that's just whack. Okay. Okay, what is statutory rape exception? Statutory is when one party's to sexual activity is below the age of consent. It does not have to be forcible because exactly, it just can come off like relatively reasonable somehow. Okay. In more states, child marriage is considered as a valid defense in statutory rape. The material defense to statutory rape also used to be permitted under federal law in 2008. In 18 UCS section 2243C2. Okay. While 18 U.S.C. 2243 was amended by the Violence Against Women Reauthorization Act of 2022 to eliminate the statutory defense, a similar defense still exists in the United States Military Code under 10 U.S.C. Section 920B. The exception under 10 U.S.C. Section 92B and similar exception under the state law suggests that the government condones the practice of child marriage as it allows an adult to engage in sexual activity. Yes, fertility cult, we know this. Okay. I mean, there's not much we can do about it. Just people have to fucking come to grips within their own states' rights, apparently. Jesus Christ. Okay, what can you do about it? Okay. Yeah, I don't think talking to people is gonna really settle this. Okay. So going into another article about this atrocious topic. So thank you for sticking with like this video so far, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you absolutely should. And if you haven't seen it, you should follow the Grooming for the birth rate theme that I put last year. Okay, about child marriage in the U.S. Unchained started the new leads, growing now leads a growing national movement to end child marriage in the U.S. Child marriage, a marriage before age 18, was legal in all 50 states as of 2017. Thanks to Unchained's relentless advocacy, this has changed. Delaware and New Jersey in 2018 became the first two states to end this human rights abuse, followed by American Samoa in 2018. The U.S. Virgin Islands, Pennsylvania, and Minnesota in 2020, Rhode Island and New York in 2021, Massachusetts in 2022, Vermont, Connecticut, and Michigan in 2023. However, child marriage remains legal in 40 states. Okay, progress. This is where I was thinking it was 40 states, but I just wanted to read that other one. Okay. And it's happening in the U.S. at an alarming rate. Unchained's groundbreaking research revealed that nearly 300,000 children as young as 10 were married in the U.S. between 20 and 2018, mostly girls wed to adult men. And it only got worse once they took away Roe. I keep harping on this, but it only got worse when 10-year-olds were literally being impregnated, and child advocacy, like family planning, like people were like, oh, they'll learn to love the child. Yeah, sickening. So, one, child marriage can easily be forced marriage. The age of majority when children become legal adults and get the rights of adulthood is 18 or higher in every U.S. state. Children who have not yet reached the age of majority have limited legal rights and therefore can easily be forced into marriage or forced to stay in a marriage. They face overwhelmingly legal and practical barriers as they try to leave a home to escape a forced marriage, get help from an advocate, enter a domestic violence shelter, or retain an attorney. I mean, if you know that, most young people aren't thinking about this. There needs to be something that is built for, not for the child to just understand, but getting people to realize that it's hard for children to come out with this and sort of be their middleman for them to come out with it if by chances that this is happening. I just don't, like, is this talking about children coming out? Because I just don't think that it's, like, especially if you got them to think it was consensual but not mention it to anyone at the same time, like, I can see how that would somehow be contradictory. Anyways, perhaps most shocking, children typically are not allowed to initiate illegal proceedings such as seeking a protective or even filing for divorce unless they act through a guardian or other representative. This outrageous legal setup puts the lock in wedlock. Jeez. Okay, the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights categorizes all child marriage as forced marriage. Okay. So 18 as a 71st. Okay. So I just want to look at this. Oh, at least 60,000 child marriages in the U.S. have between 2000 and 2018 occurred at an age or within a spousal age difference that should have been considered a sex crime. Of those child marriages, 88% gave a rapist a get-out-of-free card, while 12% sent a child home to be raped. Either way, the marriage license made a mockery of statutory rape laws. Okay, so as you can see, so there's no action in these 5 states. There's bills passed in a couple of states. Strong bills. Okay, so there's 4 bills that will potentially lead to this being outlawed very soon, in my opinion. Oh, okay, cool. Where's a weak bill taking place here? Okay, so I'm under the inclusion. So when it talks about bills being prevented, I'm thinking that these are bills to. Okay. Oh, jeez. Um. Jeez. All right, this map is the main thing I wanted you guys to see because yeah. Okay. So there's limited hope here in red, as you can see, because that's what I was thinking. That when it talks about things being passed bill wise, that's the hope of ending child marriage. Because it could be the other way around, and I could be just missing some context here. But all right, very limited hope. Okay, so despite Greg Abbott and conservatives freaking out about migrants showing up, like they often do, send their children alone because they feel like they'll have a better shot at making it across, or it's a law that you have to let your kids go across, but the adults have to stay back. So, this is the most twisted thing ever. So, as children are migrating, they're probably being kidnapped, sold on the sex market, and not only that, alone and exploited migrant children work brutal jobs across the U.S. They're being used as essentially slavery. So, groomed into making babies if you're the demographic they want for the most part, and slaves, well, out of children, but I mean, who would have thought? So, when I thought of child labor, I thought of like the citizens doing it, not migrants. But this is actually kind of crazy. Okay, President Biden's open border policies are causing a surge of unaccompanied children making the dangerous journey across the border. Typically, the Department of Health and Human Services Office of Refuge Settlement (OOR), under the leadership of Secretary Xavier Becerra, has failed to keep children safe in their care. So yeah, of course, Democrats are to blame here too, but optically speaking, this won't be blamed on Republicans because they're the one that wants them out. So if you don't want migrants in and aliens in, that only means that they'd be against the children being enslaved in our country. But that's just the vision that they're pretending to have you think of. Um, I'm pretty sure for the most part, even though there's radical Republicans who don't want migration, they're also working to get the immigrants they want, and they probably have no trouble using children that they don't care about to work. You know, Democrats, on the other hand, there's always this issue with them taking in the immigrants and yada, 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 that whole scapegoat, but they'll be probably blamed for the children, most likely. And of course, they're to blame too. They're a part of this system at work. Okay. Tragically, the Department of Human Services Office of Refugee Settlement, under the leadership of Xavier, has failed to keep children safe, and security of Barcella OOR has lost track of tens of thousands of children after hastily releasing them from custody. As reported by New York Times, quote, migrant children who have been coming into the United States without their parents in record numbers are ending up in some of the most punishing jobs in the country, end quote. Below are key takeaways and excerpts from the Times February 2023 investigative reporting. Okay. The Biden administration border crisis lacks compassion, as reported by New York Times. The number of unaccompanied minors entered the United States climbed to as high as 130,000 last year, 3 times what it was 5 years earlier, and this summer is expected to bring another wave. Okay, so the Democrats are also locking up immigrants, and this is actually I should have found another article for this because this is very unrelated, but this is making it sound like they're totally just taking in immigrants just willy-nilly, but no. Like, Biden was also totally fine with Title 42. So, all right. Quote, there are not children who have stolen. Oh, These are not children who have stolen into the country undetected. The federal government knows they are in the United States, and the Department of Health and Human Services is responsible for ensuring sponsors will support them and protect them from trafficking or exploitation. Or so they claim, right? Quote, but as more and more children have arrived, the Biden White House has ramped up demands on staffers to move the children quickly out of shelters and release them to adults. Caseworkers say they rush through vetting sponsors. Well, there's probably not enough people to do all this. As our country shrinks, there's not enough people to maintain the newcomers that want to come in. Now, that could just be talking on my ass, but, workers are just getting shit on, and it's the new generation that'll just take what they can get, and possibly they'll learn to reject it, but from what I've seen, like, there's just people who, even multi-generational types that are like, nah, keep working, even if it's shitty. Like, it doesn't even matter. So, okay. Quote, but as more and more children have arrived, the White House has ramped up demands. Okay. Quote, while HHS checks on all minors by calling them a month after they begin living in their sponsors, data obtained by the Times showed that over the last 2 years, the agency could not reach more than 85,000 children. Overall, the agency lost immediate contact with a third of migrant children. So it's possible that there was just deals on the side to just take some and leave some. Like, I can't really say that there's total morality going on when you just see them as the other. And so it's very easy just to like, oh, sorry, we have no idea, Pure negligence, most likely. I'm sorry to say. Secretary Barcera ignored direct warning signs from staff. Quote, concerns piled up in summer 2021 at the Office of Refugee Settlements, the HHS division responsible for unaccompanied migrant children. In a memo that July 11 managers said they were worried that labor trafficking was increasing and complained to their bosses that the office had become, quote, one that rewards individuals for making quick releases and not the one that rewards individuals preventing unsafe releases. Quote, staff members said in interviews that Mr. Barcera continued to push for faster results, often asking why they could not discharge children with machine-like efficiency. Again, that's true. They just want to do it and get it over with. Quote, if Henry Ford had seen this in his plans, he would have never become famous and rich. This is not the way you do an assembly line, Mr. Barcera said at a staff meeting last summer, according to a recording obtained by the Times. So, a bunch of people probably didn't want to do shitty wages, and so they stopped working there, and they started to use child labor as like a gotcha. And so they couldn't use citizen children, so they had to use migrant children, because that way they would be undocumented and you wouldn't get in as much trouble if you were just using citizen children. So it's a zero-sum game when, like, you really have to, like, punish people, like, in the next line. It's like a line of punishment, honestly. So there's a lot of people who would say, fuck this, I'm out. But since these are children, they don't know better. But the last people said, fuck this, I'm out. And even if these children were like, this is awful, what can they really do, Maybe they're groomed into thinking like, oh, I'll get a cookie or something. Maybe they're not even treated terribly. Maybe they're actually, like, treated, quote-unquote, respectably. But it's meaningless at the end of the day. Jesus. So,